My name's JJ. Stands for Joseph John. Started on the railroad October 2nd, 1967. Whew. The positions, I was a conductor and a peer instructor. For 25 years, I taught people to work for the railroad. And but then I worked as a conductor in freight service and in passenger commuter service. How long in the positions? I was 54 years with the railroad. A lot of people used to say 54. I said, I was born in a caboose. So, I didn't look that old, so 54. And I retired November 30th of the year 2022. And that's my story.
I'm Mike. I first started on the railroad June of 1970. Worked as a brakeman, switchman, conductor, footboard yardmaster, helped JJ with training. And I made it all the way to June of 2012. I thought it was going to be a summer job. It just turned out to be about 40 summers long. But I've been retired almost 12 years now, and I like that better than working. But it was an interesting job. Kept you in shape, physical. I was a little lighter then, but no, it's enjoyable. And Roger here started after me, I believe.
Yeah, I started in 1974 with Chicago Northwestern. And January 31st was my actual first paid day. And started out as a brakeman. I hired out with a distinct purpose of being an engineer, but they weren't hiring those. You had to come up through the ranks. So I was a brakeman for about 3 months when the bulletin came out for fireman positions. So I bid on that, and my seniority allowed me to go into engine service after just a little over 3 months. So I was a fireman on the Northwestern's scoots, passenger trains as we called them. Then I went to engineer school in West Chicago in the summer of 1975, and worked still as a fireman until I got set up as an engineer in probably 77 or 8, and worked a lot of freight trains, worked a lot of scoots, worked switch engines. And as the years progressed, I had a lot of young guys coming up that I trained on the job training to run freight trains, and some even on the passenger trains. And I worked mostly up into Wisconsin. Mike and JJ, they worked the east-west main line. I worked the north line up to Harvard, Janesville, Madison, then north up to Milwaukee and Adams, Fond du Lac, Green Bay. And I retired on December the 5th of 2014. So I've been retired about 9.5 years. And right now, this is the best job I ever had. So we've got a few stories to tell, I think. And we'll talk about things as they pop up, and that'll always remind us of other stories, too. So,
Which reminds me, and I don't want to interrupt you.
Go right ahead. What do you want to say?
The railroad buffs. When we hired out, how many crew members were on the train?
5, if you want to count the firemen. 6 if you want to go back and have a flag man.
Yeah, 6. And we had, that's why you mentioned firemen. There's no such thing anymore. But
And scoots, those are passenger trains. It's just kind of a slang term on the Union Pacific Railroad, which used to be the Chicago Northwestern.
Right. We had the engineer, of course, fireman, the head brakeman. They did all the work on the head end. Then you had the conductor in the caboose, the little red thing.
Yeah.
Then you had a rear brakeman, and like you mentioned, also a flagman. Every time the train stopped, the guy go out with fusees, go out a
Flagging
mile
can.
or whatever before radio communications, the signal indications, all that, so no other train came behind. And that's why, in the old days too, the train behind, you remember when they would come right up to the caboose?
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew we'd be playing cards in there or drinking beer or doing something
Well,
stupid back
root
there.
beer maybe, but
root beer.
yeah.
Oh yeah, root beer.
You left a word
Yeah,
out
I
there.
forgot. But, when you mentioned firemen, nowadays there's no caboose. You got a conductor on the head end with the engineer. That's it.
Back then too, we didn't really have radio communication. There was a phone box at every milepost usually, and you had a big dry cell battery in there, and you had a special code, 2 longs and a short for the yard office, and maybe 1 long for the train dispatcher. And you'd ask him to call the engineer on the radio and tell him what happened, and back up, go forward, take off, whatever. But yeah, it was kind of a archaic thing when we first started.
Yeah.
Never saw so many sunsets and sunrises in my life.
And all at one time, you watch the
Yeah.
sun come up and you watch it go down.
Right.
Those 14, 16-hour days.
True, it was 16 hours you could work when we first started.
And now instead of cabooses, you've either got a end of train device, which flashes when you start and stop the train and at night. And sometimes you'll have a locomotive or 2 in the middle of the train, perhaps, usually just at the end. And those are distributive power engines, and those are controlled by the cab on the front end. You can make it do whatever you want with the engine on the front, or run it separately if you want. We really don't have any need to do that out here because we don't have any big hills like they do out west. But so instead of a caboose, you got either the EOT or the engine, and it's just the conductor and the brakeman or the conductor up on the engine. And on the suburban trains, there's just the engineer up there, and the trainmen are all back in the back taking care of the customers and collecting tickets, doing their electronic ticket taking and what have you. So things have changed a lot between 5 guys on a crew and now 2, and some places they only want to have 1. But Congress is trying to work that out, so we'll see how that works.
That EOT that you're talking about, end of train link device,
Fred.
Fred.
Yeah.
It's a federal rear end device.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
said
federal.
something else,
Yeah.
but Fred. But when it came about, we were thinking, what's this thing going to do? It actually did more than we did as conductor.
Yeah.
It would tell the engineer how much air pressure. It would tell the engineer when the train was moving, when the train was stopped,
How many feet?
how many feet, the length of the train, all this stuff, and it never went to sleep. Not that we never went to
Oh.
sleep. Oh, no.
We were wide-eyed.
Yes, wide-eyed, bushy tail. But the end of train link device, everybody thought, this isn't going to work. But one thing about cabooses, they were the most dangerous thing on the railroad.
They sure were.
Yes. If you had a great engineer or something, nothing to worry about. But if you had a new engineer or a train that wasn't
It
made
just
up
wasn't
correctly,
good. Yeah.
the slack would bunch or the slack would go out, whiplash. And if you ever seen, and you probably have pictures of all the cabooses that were burnt up, and everybody said, well, how come they're burnt up? When I heard out, you had a coal stove that you loaded, and when that slack went in, it'd come right off the floor, the wooden floor, and start the cabooses on fire. That was years ago.
Yes. Slack could be extreme. Yeah.
And we used to call them, they call them cabooses or way cars.
Gorilla cage.
Gorilla cage, and you say gorilla cage, it's because when you got up, there was grab irons, bars all over your head, on the side, if you weren't hanging on to something.
You go from one door to the next. Yeah.
Yes, without touching the ground.
Yeah.
But those are the good days with the caboose. And now, I don't know, they've sold them all. And they're
Museums, I
Museums
guess.
and
Yeah.
whatever. And I've got, in every caboose I was ever in, I put my own graffiti inside a cabinet, and I write my daughter's name, Kyle. I put it on every caboose. So if I go to someplace in North Dakota or something, they have a
It's there,
UP caboose, I'll go in there and open up a cabinet, and there's my daughter's name on there.
That's cool.
Yes. So graffiti.
You know, people ask me, what's the plural of caboose? And is it cabooses? And I say, no, it's just like a goose. Plural of goose is geese, so the plural of caboose is caboose.
I think you just
That's
made
how
that
they
up.
are. Hired Italians. You're caboose.
Yeah, caboose,
Yeah.
caboose.
Speaking of, you said no radios or whatever, note I had down here about communication between the engineer and the caboose, the way car or whatever. It was all hand and lantern signals.
And fusees.
And fusees.
Or flares.
Flares nowadays.
But fusees, yeah.
But the first thing that I learned on the railroad, giving hand signals. That's why we didn't hire Italians, because they were always talking with their hands, and the engineers looking out the window like, what do you want me to do?
Actually, they would be pretty good because they're always very good with their hands, so they're very quick to learn what all this stuff means instead of just flailing around.
Oh, yes.
They would say, oh, that means come ahead, and that means go away. Oh,
Yeah, it's come to
hi."
me or get away from me.
Yeah.
So,
And when I taught with Mike, we taught them hand and lantern signals. And then we go out to walk on the wild side, go inspect trains, and I tell the students, now stand there perfectly still. Don't put your hands in your pocket, perfectly still. I said, don't blow your nose. Okay. Don't scratch your bottom. Don't say you're hungry. And don't be swatting the flies. And they look at me and say, what did you just say? The train's got a hot box. It's in the middle of your train, and you got one near the rear of your train, but highball, skip it all. Everything's fine and dandy. So that's why hand and lantern signals, man.
yeah.
You didn't play cards with a conductor or an engineer because we knew, that was six, that was seven, that was eight, that
Yeah.
was nine. All our
yeah.
signals were all by hand.
You
So-
remember back when it was dark and you had a really long train, you'd have to have somebody in the middle to relay the lantern or the flashlight signal or
Yes.
the fusee signals. I watched that happen. Well, I did it a few times when I was a brakeman, but as an engineer, I used to look at that stuff and like, you guys gotta get together here because I can't see the end of the train. So put somebody in the middle and. We did it without radios. It wasn't easy, and it took a while, but
Well,
we got
trains
it
now
done.
are coast to coast, but when we started, we would put cars in sidings and towns. You'd do 3 or 4 towns on the way to your
Yeah,
final terminal. You give 20 cars here, pick up 12 cars there, and a
yeah,
lot different. You didn't have a radio, so everything was hand signals, fusees.
yeah. People didn't realize what
Reflective
all took
material.
place with the
Yeah.
train. They all thought, well, that train goes from point A to point B. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of little asterisks along the way that you make work at. And some trains are straight through, some are the work trains, and that's when you really test your skills.
I think the hardest thing, and you bring up a couple, hardest thing for a new person was railroad terminology.
For sure.
And think
Yeah.
about it for a second. Give me a couple things that the outside world doesn't understand.
Deadhead,
Deadhead, what's that?
that's when you're riding on a train or on a cab or somewhere going from point A to point B, either getting off your train going to your final terminal or going from your initial terminal to go get a train that may be sitting somewhere, so you're deadheading to that train or from that train. Now the airlines have the same thing.
Yeah, the flight attendants, the pilots.
They deadhead
But,
the pilots, but that's really not that strange of a term. So I think you can come
How
up
about
with
making
better
a
ones.
joint?
Making a joint.
Making a joint, yeah. No, there's no drugs out here. No, we're not rolling something. We're putting cars
Coupling
together.
cars, it's making a joint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's throwing a switch.
yeah.
Yeah.
Then
How
you-
far can you throw it?
Not too far, pretty
Then
heavy.
you got to make the weenies, right?
Make the weenies.
Yeah,
Make
with,
the
air
and,
hoses.
and the end of the air hose is the glad hand.
Right.
Like, glad hand. What is this?
Yeah.
I remember the first trip I made. Somebody was talking about, well, yeah, poor Louis. He was out there and they died.
He died.
I'm like,
I just saw him.
really? No, he died under the hours of service. Oh,
He's
that's
dead to
what you
work.
mean.
He's dead to me now.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, God, I'm glad he's still alive.
that's that flower money, Bill.
No,
Oh, there's some more terms, too. I mean,
I know. I
Barn.
got I think a list of a bunch of them.
yeah, go ahead.
You know, oh, tie up.
Tie up.
That's a sign.
Go to Beans?
Beans.
Go to
Yeah.
beans. What else we got? Of course, I talked about counting cars or doing whatever. So put it on the main.
Yeah.
Put your engine in the pocket.
Yeah.
Tie up. Go home, and see Mama. that one we can edit. Okay.
Nah, that's a good one.
The hot box, like I say, sticky brakes, and the highball. Where'd the term highball come from?
Back in the day,
Right.
before lights and stuff, there was a ball hanging from a pole by the train stations, and if the ball was high, it means the track was clear to the next station.
That next ball.
And then once you went by that big ball on the thing, the station agent would then drop the ball, so any following train would know, well, there's a train up ahead of me. So when that train passed the next station, he would telegraph or talk to the guy behind him. He said, okay, well, we're clear to the next station, so he could put the ball back up again. So if the ball is high, that means high ball, go for the next
Proceed.
station.
Yeah, and you making a joint in the highball. That's what
We're in the right
did,
spot, right?
Yeah. You know, when I first heard that term highball, I thought, well, are we going to go to a bar somewhere and have a highball or what?
Yeah.
No, then they explained it to me.
Yeah. You mentioned you enjoyed the railroad, good pay, good benefits,
Yeah.
and then
4 children for free?
yeah,
Insurance was
I
really-
made money on my
was
son
really
when
good
he
that
was
way,
born because of my wife had insurance, I had insurance. But one other thing about management, they used to call it the team. You had the transportation department, which was engineers, conductors, yard masters, etc.
Operating.
Yeah, you had the engineering department, which was the people that were working on the track. You know, when they used to pound spikes or whatever, now they got machines doing it all. The A for administration department, which was your clerks, payroll, the most important thing. Those, you know, we'd hand in our time slips to get paid. And the last portion, which was mechanical, which they fix the engines, fix the railroad cars, rip track. Do you know what?
Repair in place.
No?
I just
I thought
always
it was
accepted
repair
it as
in
a
place.
term that that's where you put the cars that needed to get worked on.
Yeah, the rip track, RIP, repair, inspect, and paint.
Ah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Aha.
So we learned something. And every day in the railroad, none of them were the same, were they?
No.
There's also letters on a car that said COTS, cleaned, oiled, tested, serviced.
Service. Yeah. COTS. Want to talk about the weather?
Oh, boy, we got stories about the weather.
Yeah, she got pictures up there.
Oh. Well, I was usually the first one to see the weather, obviously, because I was up in the engine. And I'd go through some monster drifts sometimes, and very much like some of the pictures you'll see, you could not see in front of you after you went through some of those snow
30, 40
drifts.
seconds at least. Yeah.
Oh, at least. And you'd blow the whistle to try and keep it clean. Sometimes it would clog up so bad, I'd just stop the train and go up there with a fusee or have the brakeman do it.
As you got older, yeah.
Yeah, as I got older, he went and did it, the conductor, and put a fusee in the hole in the whistle.
Yeah.
I hate running a train when the whistle sounds like, choo choo Charlie. Sometimes that's all you get.
Well, Union Pacific started mounting the whistles backwards too for a while.
Well,
so
they did
wouldn't
that,
get
but they
clogged
also
with
put
snow.
them back by the cooling fans of the engine,
Yeah.
so it'd keep them warm. Well,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was smart. But where did the Northwestern put them? Right up here on the front of the engine, right above the headlight. So anytime you hit the snowdrift, it would all come up in front of the windows or up in the
Snow catchers,
whistle. And boy, that was a mess. And fog, oh my Lord. Fog was so thick sometimes you better know what you were doing and where you were. There was a story about going up to Lake Geneva that back in the old days, real old days, like maybe in the 50s or 60s, a train going north into Pell Lake, the engineer had always, if it was really foggy, they could see off to the side because the headlight was always making things so bright. So you'd look off to the side, and there was an outhouse in the back of a house right alongside the tracks. So when you saw that outhouse, you knew Pell Lake was about a quarter of a mile away. So you start setting the brake, you'll see it when you get closer. Well, Halloween came around, and the kids knocked over the the outhouse. So the train just happened to be coming without the fog or with the fog. He's looking for the outhouse. No outhouse. Whoops! There goes Pell Lake. Oh my goodness! The weather does play an important part of having fun on the railroad.
Yes.
And that was dark territory up there,
It
too.
was dark.
Yeah,
Yeah,
running
very,
with
very
cab
dark.
signals. At
No
least they'll tell you
signals.
it's clear. You can't see anything.
No.
It's not clear to you to see, but the track is clear.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You had the track all the way to Lake Geneva or Williams Bay, but if you couldn't see it, then it was dark because it
Somebody
was
put something on the
not only
track
dark
or-
because
yeah.
there was no signals, but dark, and you usually had to, after you run the trains a while, certain things out of the corner of your eye, so you know where you're at.
Little landmarks.
Yeah, landmarks, and even the guys in the caboose. I've heard you guys saying, you can look out the window and you know exactly where you are because you've been paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So
For many years.
Now, what year was it that the weather was so bad they had to come and get you a snowmobile?
78 or 79, there was two back-to-back
Oh, yeah,
years.
they
And,
were.
you tell the dispatcher, we're hungry, we want to go eat. And they go, go ahead, I don't know how you're going to get there. But you got my permission. And we were in the town of Ashton, and the fire department came out with snowmobiles to get us off.
No
Took
kidding.
us to a tavern to eat tombstone pizzas,
Oh,
That's
my.
all I had. But yeah, you're on there quite a while.
Yeah,
12 plus hours. So
yeah. Back in 75 or 6 or so, I was a fireman on a commuter train, Scoot. And that afternoon, I think it was in April, had a really strange winter storm that dumped about 6 to 8 inches of snow on the ground. And we were on our way to Crystal Lake, and the weather was so bad, the snow was so deep, and so we barely got to Crystal Lake, barely got the switch dug out to get into the siding and put the train away, and then we're like, our cars are totally snowed in. Well, we got a room for you at the hotel, but we don't have any way to get you. Well, I'm not going to walk there, and my car's snowed in, and the roads are packed.
terrible. Yeah.
I spent the night on the Scoot. That was ugly. That was ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, now me with the weather, when I used to train, I've been to 23 states to train people, but the worst was I was in Arizona, Phoenix, and the heat, of course, if you've been to Arizona,
It's
but
a dry heat, though,
it-
JJ.
yeah, but I tell you what, when you're between two tracks, and normally in the summertime around here, I didn't wear gloves most of the time.
Preferred not to, really.
Yeah. But down there, if you didn't wear gloves, the grab irons
Oh.
on the side of the car would be 100, 110 degrees. And
You start leaving skin on the grab irons.
yes. So the heat was, I think, with the winter, you dress for success. And that's the first thing I learned.
Layers,
was,
yeah.
layers and do whatever. And even I had guys that would wear, during the winter in the yard, pantyhose. They heard a rumor pantyhose would keep you warm because the girls with the skirts and everything were wearing, well, let's try it. We all tried it, but it didn't last too long.
I think football, well, I didn't try it, but I think football players are doing it back then too.
It's kind of
It
like
was
putting
kinda-
your feet in a baggie or a plastic bag to put in your boots so your feet didn't get wet.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
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 When you're outside for 8 hours, 10 hours, switching cars, and yeah, you want your feet
Bad
warm.
enough getting them cold, but when they're wet and cold,
Wet,
that's
worse,
even
yeah.
worse.
Yes.
Oh,
What else do you want to talk about? Let's see. Nicknames. You just mentioned we had a guy in our line. His nickname was Pantyhose.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Really?
His
Yeah.
last name was Nylon. But
Yes.
of course, you
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
you gotta go with the flow. You know?
Pantyhose or whatever. Okay, how about personal lives? Family, whatever. How did they accept the railroad?
Rough.
It was rough, yeah. I got to compliment my wife for what she did with 4 kids because I was just not around. She had to take them to the grocery store together, and it's rough because you're gone 7 days a week sometimes, and you come home and go to bed and get up 6 hours later with a phone call. You had to go to work at 3 a.m, and yeah, it was being on call was rough. Fortunately, that didn't last forever, but it was a good part of our life being on call.
Very long part of our life, yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That one call could ring after you're
Christmas,
off
whatever.
for 8 or
yeah.
10 hours.
The
yeah.
holidays,
No
how many
holiday.
holidays did we miss?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, lots. Yeah, holidays, celebrations, birthdays, anniversaries.
Graduations, piano
Yeah.
recitals, just the
Yeah.
railroad would like to have an orphan that doesn't have any friends, and that'd be an ideal employee.
Yes.
This was back then. Now, I think things might be a little bit better now,
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
but
Because we got these now, and when we were on call 24 hours a day, you could go
God, yes.
8 feet away from the phone.
Yeah.
That's as far as the extension cord
You
went.
say, I got to mow my lawn, I'll call you in 20 minutes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, make sure you're first out. You better call me or you'll miss a call and you won't
Yep.
get paid. And
And nowadays with this, the computers and whatever, I'm not saying that they have it better than we do.
a little easier to know what's coming at
Yes,
you. But
yes.
Well, then we went from the phone to pagers.
Pagers.
Boy, that was like-
First ones just beeped. Then the next generation had a phone number on it
Right.
that was beeping you, so you knew who was calling you. Then you'd have to go find a phone. Then the cell phones came around, and then things started to really get better. Now you got these smartphones, and the technology on the railroads is such that you can watch what trains are coming, how many times out you are, how many, what you think you might be going to work on, and it's a lot better.
Oh, for sure. Geography. The length of the trains, like you mentioned, had to put somebody in the middle. Nowadays, a coal train.
used to be 110 cars.
Yes.
Well, back then, now they're longer.
Well, that's what I mean. But yeah,
Yeah.
it used to be.
Now they're up to 145 or so.
Yeah. And the weight, with the engineer.
Yeah.
Stopping distance. We were talking about accidents or whatever, maybe in a little bit, but
Yeah, they're
how
twice as long.
How many times have you been asked, how long does it take to stop a train?
Yeah, well,
And now you take in what conditions?
they even got 2 coal trains doubled together. So instead of 140 cars, you got 280 cars. And that's, I don't know, 30,000 tons or something like
Well,
that.
each car weighs 125 tons.
Right, so
loaded.
I'm going to do the
Loaded,
math, you
yeah.
can do it, but I don't know, I never had that. They just started doing that recently. I can't imagine running a train that's 30 or 35,000 tons and 3 miles long.
Yes.
It's crazy. But you really got to know your geography because people don't understand that there are hills and can be tricky. People think, your tracks are straight and flat. And, well, no, it doesn't work that way. You've got rivers somewhere, and back in the Ice Age, they dug a trench, so now you've got the railroad tracks that are coming up to a bridge, and it may be downhill, then you go over the bridge, then you go back uphill. All the time this slack is adjusting, and sometimes if you got the heavy part of the train in the back, it's going to give you a push. That's where you guys in the caboose really learned your lesson and knew about geography. Mm-hmm. You looked out the window and said, oh boy, here it comes, because I'm not so sure if this engineer can handle this. So you'd hang on, and sure enough, bang, you'd run into the hind end, and then when the train started going up the hill, out went the slack, and there you go flying.
Oh, yeah.
You guys had to know where the geography was as much as the engineer did.
Oh, yes. No. Talking about that, and maybe they don't want to hear this.
Maybe they do.
How many accidents, not train accidents, but pedestrian grade crossing accidents have you had in your career?
Well, first of all, I prefer to refer to them as trespassers. They may have been on foot. Some people may call them pedestrians, but if I hit them, I was on my property, or the railroad's property, so they were trespassing. Even if they were on a grade crossing, walking across, if those gates are down, that track is mine, it's not theirs, so they are trespassing. So the final count was 9 pedestrians and 19 cars over 41 years. Not everybody died. Some were messy, some were suicides, and usually the conductor got off to check out the remains or the person or what have you.
Status,
and stay up on the engine to answer all the stupid questions from the dispatcher and whoever, how long did it be there? Well, I got a body underneath the train. What do you think? But I had to stay on the engine. The conductor went back and relayed the information, got the emergency personnel there. And so, yeah, it was... I prefer not to think about it now. Those things are
it's traumatic.
Long gone. Yeah.
A lot of engineers, and I'm sure conductors do.
Yeah, you guys had to see the stuff.
PTSD or whatever.
Yeah.
They think it's just military, but it affects just about everybody in the world. But with engineers, I always felt so bad for the engineers.
We had a few that quit because of that.
Yes.
I just can't go over another grade crossing. I freak out every time I see a car coming.
Even if you didn't quit, you'd be really, really shaky when you got close to a grade crossing or anywhere. Really, you'd be so vigilant because maybe a week before you'd had an accident like that, and anything that moved, like, oh God, I hope it's not another person. Yeah. And it takes time. Everything takes time. You get over it.
Yeah, and we talked about length of trains, weight of trains, and all that. At a grade crossing, you're going 50, 60 miles an hour. How far away can you see the car that's stuck on the crossing? How far back are you?
If it's good and straight track, I can see it for a good mile or more. But at that point in time, you don't know
what's going on,
why it's there. Maybe it's just stopped because somebody's taking pictures of an oncoming train and thinking they're cool and they're going to move at the last minute. Maybe there's traffic ahead of them that you can't see, that they can't move. They shouldn't be there to begin with. You should never stop on the tracks, regardless. But the closer you get, you start to assess the situation. If you can see that there's no reason why he shouldn't be moving, obviously then you're on the whistle a lot. And if you see no action, well, then start hitting the brakes.
Probably too late already.
It might be too late, but you just don't know. You can't put the train in emergency for everything that's out there, because you may do that too soon, and then whatever it is will get out of the way. So you kind of have to judge whether or not you're going to see something that's really going to happen. Then you'll put the train in emergency. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And that's not a good scenario. You're on a curve, you don't know until you get there. Oh, geez, look at this guy. So.
Well, that was one of the 5 of the 19 cars that I hit. Was on my way up to Fond du Lac, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and We came around the curve, and down at the bottom of the hill was a big road crossing, and it's dark except for the lights on the street there. And on the other side of the street, to the left of the tracks, was a bar. And it's 2:00 in the morning. I think it was just about closing time, but maybe it wasn't quite. Anyway, as I'm getting closer, I'm looking down at this crossing, and I'm seeing reflectors that I'm not so sure they're going to clear the train. And as I get closer, I see that there's been a bunch of cars that have backed up to the little curb thing, and the hind end of their cars are fouling the tracks. Not by much, but enough. Now, put the train in emergency, and it wasn't soon enough, and I got 5 rear ends, 5 cars that I cleaned off. Boom, 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 boom. And the rear view mirrors are flying, the bumpers are flying, and all the junk's coming up because I hit them. And that was quite a fun experience because nobody got hurt.
Oh, wow.
We managed to wreck 5 cars though. And
They won't park there anymore.
when the
Right.
when the cops showed up, they went into the bar to find out who belonged to the cars, and 4 people came out and said, "Yeah, that's mine." And, okay, well, here's your number. And they couldn't find the 5th one, and they went back in the bar. Who owns this other car? And some guy comes up. That's my car, and I'm going to sue you. And he goes off into this big rant, and before you know it, he's in handcuffs, and he got taken away because he was drunk and he wasn't going to drive anyway. But he made a big scene. But that was a fun thing because nobody got hurt. But just one of those accidents,
Yeah. And I know you've been involved in many.
Which one? I mean, cars or?
How about train derailments?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Been in a
favorite
few.
subject.
Been in a few of those. Yeah, that's.
What were you doing May 17th, 1976?
Trying to go home.
Where were we at?
I ran into you.
Yeah,
Literally.
you ran into me.
Yeah, we were on two separate trains and side by side coming through Glen Ellen, and one derailed, and we hit your train that derailed, and it was a mess. I don't remember how many cars altogether. Do you?
Well, I know my train, there was only something like 10 cars left on the track.
Yeah.
And we only had about maybe 60 cars.
Yeah, we
so.
probably lost 20 cars in ours, I think. But one was anhydrous ammonia that was, I don't know, what was it, 30,000 gallons in there. And
Shame on you.
yeah, and that polluted Lake Ellen and killed a lot of fish and evacuated the town. My wife, who I had not met yet, was living in Glen Ellen and got evacuated, I think. And I told her I was on there a couple of years later when I met her. She said, "Oh, you're the guy."
You're the guy.
Well, not personally, but yeah, that was a big one.
Yes, a lot of rules changed. I know every year we have to take tests, and one of the tests I hate the most is the hazardous material test,
Yeah.
where car placements were, and that came out at the investigation that anhydrous ammonia. They kept telling me, because I was conductor on the other train, "What's that stuff? What's that stuff?" I says, "I have no idea what it is, but it's stinging my eyes and my throat and whatever." Because me and Ronnie walked up, and they said, "What do you mean you don't know what's on this train?" I says, "It wasn't my train. It was your train."
It was, and I didn't know about it yet because that train came from South Pekin, and we were on another train at West Chicago, and they had us. They said, "You're gonna leave your train at West Chicago and get on this train coming up from South Pekin. The crew's gonna die, which means their hours of service is expiring, and we're gonna take them from West Chicago to Proviso, 15 miles." So
Yeah.
and on it had what they call it a hot hind end, which is perishables, and they pull in the yard 9 at Proviso, and they take the hind end off and take it to Chicago. So we relieved that crew, and I had no idea what was on that train either. I was only on it for 10 minutes, or whatever. Cars were upside down. So they said to me, that car was supposed to be buried by 5 cars, being at least a 6th car,
Yes.
and it happened to be the 5th car.
Yeah.
And they asked me why. I said, I don't know. I wasn't on the train in South Pekin. It wasn't my train. So that was an issue, and I think probably the railroad got sued for that somehow.
Yeah.
But
Well, I was the one that was accused of killing all the fish in Lake Ellen. Because me and Ronnie, there's a Sunday morning, we went to the fire department in Glen Ellen. I said, I've been in a derailment. There's some sort of smoke coming. Evacuate people, send them. What did I say?
Downwind.
Send them, yeah, downwind. I said, have them all go south or whatever, because the wind was going that way. And they said, what should we do? What should I do? I said, put water on it. That's one thing you don't do with anhydrous ammonia is put water. And it went to the sewer system and went to Lake Ellen by the high school.
yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah.
It killed all the fish in Lake Ellen. They were only carp anyhow, but we didn't. Me and my wife used to go to Lake Ellen and to
It was a
submarine races.
nice little lake, yeah.
Yeah. But nobody actually got hurt from that derailment. Everybody,
No. Nobody got poisoned.
yeah.
The engine wound up in the middle of the road, right in front of a phone booth.
Right.
And the engineer got off and went to the phone booth, called the dispatcher. I said, hey, I think we're on the ground. Yeah.
He didn't call the dispatcher.
No, who did he call?
The news media for the tip of the day.
Are you kidding me?
I want to get that
Well,
$10
he just made
reward.
that up.
Oh, all right.
We
Yeah.
don't want to get Woody, whatever his name was, in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy. Well, in the 70s, which there was not much maintenance, the railroads that weren't making a lot of money, the tracks were pretty bad shape.
Yeah. A
We
lot
used to
of
have
mud
old
and
trains,
grass for
yeah.
ballast.
30 miles an hour was, pretty good.
Yeah.
We go a lot of slow orders, 10 mile an hour through some towns, and
Then back in the late 70s, the government had this 4R program where there was a lot of money granted to the railroads. And the Northwestern picked up on that and got a lot of money to rehab the eastbound track from Wyoming all the way into Chicago because they knew we were running coal trains out of Wyoming. So they wanted that money to fix up that eastbound track where all the coal trains were. So they got out that ballast undercutter cleaner, which was a great machine. If you ever seen it move, it just picks the track up, digs everything out, shakes out the dirt, kicks it way out off the right of way, and puts the good rocks back in there. And then a ballast train will come behind it, fill it up, make it nice and smooth. And then they'll come with the brand new rail and fix things up. And it was really a great move on the railroad's part to get that money. That helped out a lot because there was so many derailments because
terrible.
of what
Yeah.
you said. A lot of places it was just mud and grass and weeds that was holding the tracks together.
it's all jointed rail, which means 39-foot long sections that are
Yeah.
jointed together with angle irons, and the welded rail was a quarter-mile long, and then you would weld them together, and it was a smooth
much
track.
smoother,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was
CWR, continuous
Yeah.
welded
welded rail. Yeah.
But that ballast undercutter cleaner, what it would do, not only cleaning out the tracks and putting the good rocks in there,
Buck.
when you had jointed rail, over the years it would create what's called a memory down into the ground. And if you just put welded rail on top of or replace it without doing any of that work, you're still going to get some kind of a sway. So what that ballast undercutter cleaner did was it dug down deep enough to get rid of that memory. And once you put that welded rail down there, it doesn't remember that there was a dip here, a dip there. It was all flat and everything was nice and smooth. It's a great machine. I think they got it from Germany or Austria or somewhere.
Yeah.
Placer, I believe, was the company. But that whole maintenance away equipment has progressed so much over the years. You can see videos of them laying cement ties and how these machines work. It's things that were unthinkable back in the 70s.
It was a gang of men out there
Yeah.
swinging.
Gandy dancers, there's
Yeah.
another term.
Gangy dancer,
Yeah,
yes.
the guys that worked on the tracks. I don't remember exactly how that term came around, but
It's an old term, I know that.
a
but,
very old term, yeah. But a group of 30 guys now replaced by a couple, 3 machines, and
Do it all.
yeah.
Not to get back to the derailment, but I just got back to it, didn't I?
You did.
Let's talk about something that you two and me. Do you miss railroading?
I missed the work, if you want to call it work. I really never thought I went to work at all. I really enjoyed running trains, working with the guys. Schedules were not the best, but you adjusted. Management could be fun. They could be difficult. But yeah, I miss it. Do I want to do it again? No. I think 41 years was enough. It was my time. And that's what I tell everybody that's thinking about it. You're going to know when you want to retire. It's going to just hit you, say, can't do it anymore. But yeah, I still watch trains come by Geneva and think,
I see your heart. You know?
yeah. I keep thinking, boy, I wish I could do that one more time. But then I sober up and say, no.
What about you, Mike? You miss it?
Not a fair question. I've been gone 12 years now, so worked 40. Well, you know, everybody always says you miss the guys, and that's why we get together a lot. You know, we meet on Thursdays quite a bit, and it happens to be by the main line in Geneva. But passenger trains were fun because you had a lot of people you got close with, and it was a train in the morning, and you had like 8-10 hours off, and then you had your evening train. I would come home, get my dog out, go grocery shopping. I'd drywalled my basement one year. It was nice to have that time off, and then you went back to work and brought your train back home at night. So that was nice. It was fun, but yeah, I kind of enjoy being retired.
Yeah.
I'm always busy. It seems like I don't have to be, but you always wake up. Well, I think I'm going to get this done today. Or if you don't want to do anything, you don't have to. They're going to hang out with a dog.
Do you feel like you have to accomplish at least one thing a day?
I think you do. When you're retired, at least get up, make your bed, brush your teeth, shave. You got to get something done.
No,
but,
I try and.
But something around the house, I'll say, I'm going to mow the lawn tomorrow. I think, or wash the windows, or clean out this closet or something. But yeah, you try to get something done.
Well, when you get your windows cleaned, you come up and do mine.
Now, Roger, you're involved a lot with the getting the retired people together.
Yes, I am.
Every 3 months or 4 months?
Well, twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall.
A couple in between. Like 4, isn't it?
No, we only do 2. We've only been doing 2.
Oh, I thought we had a third or a fourth.
Well,
We used to,
Right.
but I thought that was spreading things too thin. So
We're down to 2 then.
I like to get it to in the spring before summer activities start, and then towards the end of September.
Before winter comes.
Before winter comes. But yeah, I got this Facebook page for the Chicago Northwestern veterans. They have to have worked for the railroad at one time or another. They could be retired, they could be still working, but if you have a employment date before April of '95, then you're a Northwestern vet. And yeah, we get together. We've had close to 100 people a lot of times. Sometime once we had 127. But
That was a free breakfast, by the way.
when I tell people,
Oh, that's when there's so many going to show up.
and I think when all the people go back home and they tell their friends how many people showed up at these luncheons, they're like, why do you guys get together like that? I mean, that's unheard of to have that many people from one industry do that. It was a family back then, pretty much.
Exactly.
It was fun. We got a lot of laughs out of work, and so the guys really still enjoy getting together, and I'm just glad to be able to put that stuff together. So the guys, it's not about me; it's about everybody else. They to get them to come together twice a year and relive memories, tell some lies, talk about the longest train they ever ran, or
Biggest fish they caught.
yeah, there's all kinds
Well, you
of
normally
things.
wouldn't be getting together with these guys. They live in Wisconsin and you're
Right,
you know,
and we've
100,
had
200
people
miles
from
away.
Florida and out east and west and so on show up at these luncheons, and it just does my heart good to see them again. And if I didn't know them, they know somebody that's at the luncheon, and they're having a good time. That's the whole story behind that.
I'll say it out loud right now. Everybody appreciates what you do.
That's all right. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good turnout all the time. And
But yeah, I think that's, like you two said, and whatever, the most I miss is the coworkers, even the ones I didn't like. I still miss them.
it's okay to say you don't miss them.
Yeah, they have the best stories, I can tell. But then the passengers on the train,
Yeah,
I
they
know
were-
Mike does, I do. I see some of the passengers, parties, whether it's birthday or their kids growing up. That's how close I was with the passengers.
Well, I rode on your train the last day you worked,
Yeah.
and I was overwhelmed by how many people showed up that even didn't ride your train. They just wanted to see you and say goodbye for one last time.
Yeah.
It was
It's humbling,
breathtaking
yeah.
how many people rode your train that normally wouldn't, or just showed up and waved at you or gave you a handshake or something, stuffed some money in your hand or flowers.
Oh, you saw that.
Yeah, well,
See, you can make me cry up.
yeah. But, after 54 years, you deserved every bit of that acclamation. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I know you felt it, and we all did, because we love you, JJ. He's just a great guy.
Oh, did I owe you? Am I buying today? Is that the thing?
Yes, you are.
My first day on the railroad.
That was-
October 2nd, 1967. Probably one of the worst days of my life, as far as
Oh, okay.
October 2nd. If you think about even this year, what's the weather like in October? It could be 75, 80 degrees, sunshine, blue skies, the trees are turning colors. But
Yeah.
it could also be one of those days that it starts raining, the cold rain. I went to work. I took the Kate Shelley. I didn't have a car, so I had to take a train to DeKalb, Illinois, to work with the DeKalb Freeport Way Freight that switched all night, 16 hours. And I show up there. I had a T-shirt,
I know where
pair
you're
of
going.
jeans, and some work boots. Had a lantern they gave me, and a little black book, a rule book,
Fit in your
about that
pocket.
big.
Yeah, about the size of your phone now. But
And I get off at DeKalb, Illinois at 5, went to work at 5:45 p.m., October, dark, getting dark. I get off at the depot and I see some guy walking down the platform there, and he looked like he just a bum. And I'm looking at him, and he says, "Hey, son." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're the brakeman on this job?"
I think so.
Yeah, who are you? Well, I'm the conductor. And we went to work. I didn't know nothing. I derailed the caboose 3 times that night. Pipe-connected derails.
Yeah.
And he tried teaching me stuff, but about 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm by a switch, and he says, "We're going to take this train and we're going to go someplace with it." He says, "You stay at the switch and throw it back after we clear." Well, all of a sudden, the headlight and everything, the train's going farther and farther away. I'm about 3 miles from Rochelle, downtown Rochelle, and the train disappears. And the last thing I remember the conductor doing was doing something like this. I was crying, literally crying. I was soaked. I was cold. I had no idea. I'm standing by this switch at 2 o'clock in the morning. About 3 o'clock in the morning, here comes the train back. The conductor said, "Hey, son, where you been? Didn't I tell you we were going to Beans?" I had no
I don't
idea
know what that
was.
means.
I got to, I was out there for a week, 16 hours a day. I got back to Proviso, and I told Mr. Hutchinson,
I quit.
I said, "I quit.
Yeah.
I've had
Yeah.
enough of this." He says, "Son, you can't quit. You got to give a 2-week notice." By the way, you caught that job for the next 2 weeks, same thing. Came back 2 weeks later. I said, "Mr. Hutchinson," he said, "Oh yeah, son, what do you need?" Is why I want to quit. "Well, you got to sign some papers." But he went to a shoebox. He said, "What's the name?" He said, "JJ, last name, Kegley." He went through there and handed me a check for $350 clear. In 1967,
Oh, boy.
you know how much? Oh, I was rich. I was richer than anybody in the world. And I said to Mr. Hutchinson, I said, "I think I'll stick this
Try it again,
out a little
yeah.
bit." It ended up, I finally got a automobile. My dad helped me pick it out, a Ford Falcon.
Oh,
You remember
yeah,
those?
yeah.
Yeah. And,
You were styling.
oh, that was in 1967. But I'm glad I didn't quit.
We are too.
Yeah. but it was something. I wouldn't tell my best friend or kids to work
No,
for the railroad.
no.
I would not recommend anybody working for the railroad.
Not now.
Not now.
Back
No.
then, yes.
Oh yeah, the money and all that. And I didn't know the job was dangerous.
True.
You know.
You didn't know how dangerous it was, really.
Oh no, that's when we
You
used
learn, you learn the hard way, and
Yeah.
hopefully you got through the day. But
to long trains you were talking about. Yeah, we used to give the fusee the flare stand on top of the train
Climb
to
up
give
on
the
top,
signal
yeah.
to the engineers so they could see you.
all the handbrakes were up on top, so you had to climb up there.
And I guess my last note here is my last day at work.
I think we talked about that a little bit.
We talked about it, but I tell you what, I didn't want to retire. I
know,
think everybody
yeah.
knows that. I could still be working today. But I'm glad I'm retired. And thanks to all the railroaders that are paying our pension
Yeah, right.
that are still working.
Yeah.
Plus, you see our ugly faces at least once a week or so, and keep you pepped up and stuff.
Well, see, I was always envious because on Thursdays I see you two jamokes sitting there at
Yeah.
Geneva,
Yeah.
and I'm in uniform waving,
Yeah.
and you're all going, "Come on,
we
yeah,
got
come
up here,
on,
we said,
yeah."
Come on, JJ.
Got my dog
sign
next
it."
to me here.
I'm going to retire and join those guys
Yeah.
on Thursdays.
It's a
So
lot of fun now, isn't it?
That's funny though. When we did start, they didn't really tell you much. You know,
Oh.
training was nothing really.
no,
You, you didn't know what you were getting into.
No, not
You
a
know,
bit.
next thing you know, it's dark out, and you're walking around in the dark, and you didn't have a sweatshirt. It was warm when I went to work, and now I'm hungry. There's nothing to eat.
Don't you think we all got to be good weathermen back in the days? 'Cause
Oh,
yeah.
You had to look for 24 hours ahead. You know, if you're going to go out to Clinton or up to Milwaukee or whatever, you had to check out the weather in those locations because you just never know.
Oh, no.
When we go to Fond du Lac in the fall, it could be 70 degrees at Proviso, and you get up to Fond du Lac and it's 30.
Yeah.
It's like, holy crap! You know, I just got my spring stuff. You got to kind of check out where you're going.
Yeah, your bag got a little bigger. You know,
Yeah.
that you carried. And
Yeah.
a little extra food in there.
and two things we talked about dangerous. You know, I worked for. I don't know if he was there when you hired out, but they called them two guns.
Dalton, yeah. Dalton.
Well, no,
Traveler?
there was another two gun.
What
It
was
was
he?
the conductor, but
Probably.
he was missing 3 fingers on each hand.
So he just had the.
And that's
Really?
what they call-
Yeah, I kind of remember who that was. Yeah.
And that's why I learned to do the paperwork because he couldn't write or nothing. You do on the way bills and whatever. But then the other thing was the caller's office. You walk into the caller's office at Proviso, and there's guys missing an arm, sitting in wheelchairs and all that. And it's like, hey, what's going on? They hiring the handicapped people? No, these are our brakemen and conductors that lost. In the old days, hey, you got a job for life.
Yeah. Well, they used to
Okay.
drop the coupling pin in there with their
Yes.
fingers, and that's why
Yeah.
an old timer that had two or three fingers missing. We didn't have to do that. They,
No.
But still to get on a lot of moving equipment and climb up on top and set handbrakes and climb back down, all that without falling and in the middle of the rain and dark out. And
Sometimes a little faster than you thought you were going.
Yes.
And,
yeah. That's when you learn to.
Well, with our seniority, you mentioned 135 years seniority for the three of us. And I always used to teach this. I says, you guys are going to write the rule book. And they always never believe that. But everything that we did wrong, or things, mistakes we made, we actually wrote with the derailment there in Glen Ellen. They rewrote that whole hazmat book because of that. Injuries and whatever.
Injuries are the big driving force behind rule changes.
Well, the old saying, the rules are written in blood. You know, somebody goes, don't put your finger in this hole. You know,
unless, oh, no, we won't say that.
But it's usually somebody did something stupid and they made it a rule. So
absolutely.
the rule books got a lot bigger as we
Lord.
went on the railroad. It started out with a small book, and really not much bigger than this, probably. And
Well, now you can put every rule book and safety things in a phone like this, so you don't have to carry around all that junk. But before
we had a bag to carry the books.
the book would be enormous.
And you didn't look at it. Nobody looked. It's common sense.
The engineers sometimes would have their track charts in there, their bulletins, their general orders, timetables, and G-Core books, those blue binder things if you had to go to a foreign yard.
Cora.
Cora. And it would take up a good-sized grip to fill all that stuff up. Well, then if you're going to go somewhere overnight, you got another bag, unless you got a really big bag, you can put everything in one, but that doesn't work. So you'd have maybe your shaving kit, change of underwear, or whatever you want, snacks.
Well, the thing too, when you work freight, you could be gone 6 days. The sixth day you had to be going home.
That's right.
So you're not just going to pack an extra T-shirt. You got to be at least 3 or 4 days.
You guys would get stuck in that Rock River pool,
right?
And oh man, we never had
wind up buying
like
clothes
that.
sometimes.
Yeah, I bet. You can only wash that underwear so many times.
And turn it inside out once in a while.
My underwear looked like the approach to O'Hara Field with the skid marks on it.
That's where the editing comes in, I think.
The ending, yes.
Editing, geez, I don't know. We all worked a long time there. We all raised kids because of it, sent them all to college, and blessed that way, I guess. And we all got kids. They're all not a bum in a bunch.
No.
Proud of them all. So that's what 40 years on the railroad did. So it got us a good family.
Yeah, I remember my last day. My kids got on my scoot at Cary, I think, and rode in with me. They were sitting right behind me. It was my last trip in on 638, and they had ridden with me before, so they kind of knew what was going on, but they get to watch the whole trip going in. I left the door open, which I was not supposed to do according to the rules, but what are they going to do, fire me? Because I was going downtown and sign off on my papers. So we make the trip into Chicago and come into the track in the depot. I think it was track 12 or 13, and got to the bumping post, stopped, put it away, and I just sat there. I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a moment that I'll never forget. I sat there and 41 years. Why did I do this? Well, like Mike said, got great kids, had enough money to do some good things, even though we were gone a lot, but we still had some good benefits.
These are clean.
My 2 kids cost me $15. My first son, Matt, was all paid for by insurance. My daughter had some issues, so she was in intensive care for 3 days, and the insurance company wouldn't pay $5 a day, so I had to pay $15 for her.
Yeah.
But we had enough money to live comfortably and do some things, and
Well, we all stayed there because it paid well.
absolutely. And
And
once we got to know the guys you work with,
Right.
even though you may not like them, you respected them because they
What they
worked
did.
as hard as you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a job for everybody. We know that. When we did training, we'd
Oh,
have
God,
people
yeah.
that
Oh,
try to ride the side of a car and they'd fall off and what'd you do? I worked in a bank for 20 years. Oh, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
you ever get out of that chair, No, it wasn't for everybody. It wasn't an office job by any means,
A lot of paperwork, but the conditions under which that paperwork went was not office-like.
No, I always like
Indeed.
working outside. And
Like going back to my first day, I was 18 years old, and I never stayed awake all
I
night.
as well, I was 18. I never.
Yeah, I mean 16 hours. Went to work at 5:45, and you didn't get off till 9:45 the next morning. That's 16 hours, and then the engineer or the conductor would tie up after 15 hours and 59 minutes. So we only have
Get right back to work.
8 hours of rest.
Instead of 10.
Yeah, and that's another reason why most people wouldn't make it.
No, it wasn't for everybody.
the time you were going, but the money was always good.
And we saw that in training. You'd say to the guy, I'll be honest with you, you're not going to make it. You might as well just pick up your lunch and go home now because you're not going to make 2 days on the railroad.
No.
You're just. And then there's others that, you could tell. It was not a regular job by any means.
Well, totally different industry than anything I had been used to before. And I was just amazed at all the different branches of the railroad. Like you pointed out earlier, you got the administration, transportation, engineering, mechanical. There's a lot of things going on to get a train put together to get out on the road. You got to go, first you go to work, you get your paperwork, which is now, or back when we retired, it's still pretty much the same. Your train or track bulletins telling you all the slow orders and so on from point A to point B, whatever's got to go on. Then you go find your engine, you call up the yard master, where's my train, yada, yada. We get there, and in the meantime, all the mechanical forces have been working on the cars, on the engines, get everything going, do an air test, make sure everything's going. Then you got the dispatchers who pretty much have to know what your train is comprised of, if you have to make any stops and go somewhere. There's just so many people involved with one train and then another train. And when people see a train rolling through town at 9 o'clock in the morning,
You wave at
they
that little
think,
kid.
oh, well, those guys just went to work an hour or two ago. No, they probably went to work at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they've already been up for 7 hours, and they're still going. You just never know. A lot of things happen to get a train on the road. And the industry that I was just overwhelmed with at first, but after 41 years, you got to figure out who's doing what to who, and it was a great industry.
Well, it's come a long way since we started, too.
Oh God, yes.
I mean, with all the electronic stuff now, they didn't have computers then, and a train would come in the yard, there'd be a yard clerk out there with a clipboard writing down all the car numbers. They tell you, slow down a little bit, there's a guy trying to write down those numbers, They were everywhere, clerks were everywhere.
Yeah, then they graduated to the readers with the cameras and everything, but they still had to transcribe them.
Sure, write it down.
And when JJ's talking about going into the caller's office with all the amputees and so on, all the big boards were all full of these little tickets.
With people's names and
People's
seniority number
names,
on it,
and
yeah.
if they were on the extra board, the guy at the top of the list, if there was somebody took a day off, well, they'd get that top of the list and call him up, and they'd put him down on a certain job, and then they move all the stickers up. I mean, that was
Everything was paper,
yeah, paper.
everything. Now it's all electronic, but
Yeah, there's nothing like that anymore.
No, I don't know. Somehow I'm back to the caboose, and then I'm going to shut up. These are not old head stories. These are historical perspectives.
Okay.
But the best time I had in a caboose, because I always had fun. I always make. before in Elmhurst, before they built the
Underpass there, yeah.
you go pulling out of Proviso, you'd be going about 10 miles an hour, or coming in 10 miles an hour.
Be both ways, sure.
And the cars are backed up a mile on each side. But I always grab the broom, open up the window, and I'd be going through with the broom, and people that were honking their horns, they were laughing like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, that's funny.
It was funny, but those are, like I say, historical perspectives.
Yeah.
Well, everybody did stuff like that or similar stuff or whatever, just to pass the time and make life fun.
Oh, yes.
And we had fun.
In the friendship between, I probably told Mike more things about my family, my life, than I even told my wife or my kids.
It's true. You're sitting together for 12 hours and, you start talking about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spent much more time with the guys than we did at home, and that's, I think, why those luncheons are so well attended, because
Everybody says, you remember that day?
Yeah.
It was so hot out,
and
We jumped
just
in the
like
river or
here,
something.
we tell one story and it reminds you of something else, and when you get a big group of people going, you may have somebody just within earshot say, hearing a story, hey, I was on that train. What are you talking about? Or, I was in that office when this happened.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of fun.
It was a lifetime.
Well, I'm thirsty.
Yeah. It's that time.
Go ahead there, UP Metro 22, over.
We got it out early.
That'd be great, UPJJ out.
All right.
My name is JJ Kegley. It stands for Joseph John. And I'm the conductor on Metro 22. Good morning.
Got my pink on.
You got your pink on, is right. Actually, my dad worked for the Q, the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. He was what they call a car man. He had mentioned to me one day that the railroad was hiring. He says it pays good money, and if you want to have a car, he says go work for the railroad. So that's how I started. I hired out in, like I say, in 1967. That's what sort of got me interested in it. All aboard! Got drafted in 1969 and went to Vietnam throughout 1969, and I was an infantryman. And luckily, when I came back out of the service, the railroad was still here to hire me back. It's like the Olympic guy, right? Or John Travolta. So my railroad family, like I say, I'll say it out loud, my co-workers, my peers, they have a special respect for me, because I walk the walk, talk the talk. I'll go check my lights. And I wouldn't ask them to do anything I wouldn't do myself. They may come and ask you, remember those lies I told you to make up about me? I start work at 5:36 in the morning. We're going to leave here at 6:21. We'll get downtown at 7:35 on this train due to a good engineer and a good crew. Morning, Mary Beth. How you doing? I'm doing good. Here, I'll help you with that. What I love about the job is the people on the train. They're the best. They're like my second family. I know them by name. They know me by name.
JJ is very charismatic. He cares about the customers. Not only is he good with the adults, but he's amazing with the kids.
I know as soon as I park in the handicap spot, he's there to greet me, and if I need any help, he's there to give me a hand.
Just his smile, his whole demeanor, just makes it all fulfilling. Just getting up in the morning, even when you know that you're going to have a horrible day and it's a Monday.
And you got some for going home? Because these are the tickets for going home. The other two are I'm just kidding you. I'm just kidding you. They're all the same. That's my number one priority is making them happy. Then I feel happy. Can you get a shot of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, every Halloween, the passengers look forward to me being dressed for Halloween. I always do it in good taste. I went as the Metra Mime one year. Last year, I believe, I went as Charlie Chaplin. Actually, some customers actually show up that day just to see me in my Halloween costume. And I keep it a secret, by the way, until I show up the next day. Nobody knows what I'm going to be until I show up.
Yeah, thanks, JJ. Have a
Okay,
good
bye-bye. Okay, watch your steps there now. Bye. I'll continue working until they have to drag me off the property, okay? The other thing is my wealth. As much as you're paying me to do this program today, maybe I will retire. Yeah.
Please welcome JJ Kegley.
Well, you know, you smile, and somebody's going to smile back at
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
You know, if they're having a bad day or whatever, I can sense sometimes.
Yeah,
You know, having
yeah,
a
yeah.
bad day, and I try making it a little bit better for them. It makes my job go easier.
We definitely wanted to give you a little surprise. So we
Oh,
got.
am I going to cry again?
You are here. I think so. I don't know. It depends. We got your daughter Kyle and your son Bryce on Skype. You know about Skype, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
no,
got-
don't.
Okay, so Skype is where we look in that monitor right there.
Yes.
Skype is where they're on. They're all the way in Portland, Oregon, right? So they're on the screen, and we're waiting on. They'll pop up in a second. Okay, so they're gonna come up, and then we can actually talk to them. And wait, what's going on?
Yeah, we having some technical problems? This is the
Okay.
beauty of live TV. All right, sorry about that. We are on live TV, so how about this? Since we can't get your kids on Skype, how about Kyle and Bryce? Why don't you come on out?
Oh, my God.
How are you feeling now?
Oh, yeah, my blood pressure just shot through the roof.
JJ, as surprises go, where does this one rank for you?
Oh, probably the best in my life.
Well, hold on.
I mean, there were a lot of good things when they were born, but this is shocking. This is so shocking.
Well, we are
Kyle,
not
you're
done
gonna make me
yet.
cry again.
We're not done yet, because here with a special presentation on behalf of Metra and the Union Pacific is the CEO of Metra, Don Orsino.
And one of the things that we wanted to do is name the West Line after you, Kegley Corridor, and that's going to be posted. That's going to be posted in the crew facility so everybody can see what you've accomplished in your life.
All right,
Thank you.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.